No, you didn't get older and start liking Brussels sprouts. Brussels sprouts got better. How selective breeding had been used to select for better tasting Brussels sprouts and crossbreeding. And I, of course, was like, this would be a brilliant biology lesson. And about 30 years ago, a Dutch scientist identified the genes that produce these two bitter tasting chemicals that are in Brussels sprouts. Cross Brussels sprouts that have larger yields produce more Brussels sprouts with those that had less bitter taste. I always like to start with a scientific article when I build something for students so that I have data that I can reference and have them practice analyzing. And also I think that's really important too, because when they do the assignment, I can honestly tell students that, hey, you are working with data that like the scientists, the big deal scientists that you think you can't be, you're working with the same data, my guy. Like I might scaffold it in some way, but I really like being able to do that because it helps students to build confidence. All right, so that's what we have so far. And that is, of course, linking to genetics. It's linking to biotech. This Brussels sprout thing will probably be like a set of warm-ups, 4 or 5 straight days in a row of warm-ups that are reviewing content, but on a theme, a real life application. And then what I want to link it to is a practice activity, a more in-depth activity that'll be more like an interactive case study that is discussing like this same idea, but through plant domestication in indigenous populations historically. Because for me, one of my big things is science is a cultural inheritance. Helping students to understand that science is not something that happens far away in a lab they don't have access to. It's something that they and their ancestors have always done. Having students work through data and looking at it from this lens of like, how somebody, thousands of years ago might have been able to domesticate a plant through selective breeding to then further understand genetics today, the study of genetics today, and then being able to link that into DNA fingerprinting and also have students to practice some protein synthesis as a spiral review. That's going to be the case. So obviously, grab another scientific article. The article that I pulled talks about the domestication of these plants in Africa, Asia, and in the New World or the Americas. I'm very excited to write this out and actually make this whole lesson. I am going to satisfy myself for today with just like getting my thoughts out on the board and finishing up my little outline so that I can have it when I have time to actually start doing the bulk of creating the lesson. I think I'll share the outline and like my thoughts around how I'm gonna link it into different parts of the curriculum over on my Patreon inside of those some of those spaces. So be on the lookout for that if you are a member. And if you're not a member, come join us. It's a vibe.